Hey everybody, welcome to Roll and Move Reviews and our very first episode of the top 10s of board gaming. Or would this be episode number 10? I'm really not sure. But my first top 10 list is going to be top 10 board game themes. If you've been watching my reviews at all, you know theme is something that's very important to me. I like getting sucked into a character or a story and to really feel like I'm doing what the game is telling me I should be doing, or what I am doing. So I did this list because I couldn't narrow it down to just doing a couple lists about different themes and totally making lists about that theme, because picking one or two would be too hard. And I could very easily do all 10 lists as theme lists. But I decided to encapsulate into one list of my favorite board game themes. It was kind of a challenging list to make because there are a lot of themes out there that I like, but the board games for them don't even exist, or the games that are out there just aren't very good. So I had to take and compare the themes I liked versus the games that were available and how good those games were within that category. So here we go, let's take a look at the top 10 board game themes. My number 10 theme right off the bat is one that outside of board games I'm really not that into, and that theme is the Old West. I've never been a big fan of Western movies or TV shows. I'm not that enthralled with guys like John Wayne or Clint Eastwood, just never have been. Never really appealed to me. But within board games, the theme has been translated very well in a lot of different ways. There are a lot of games that capture the Old West frontier feeling very well. I think of a game like Homesteaders, where you feel like you're living on the edge and you just have enough to survive, and you're trying to build up and recreate that frontier mentality where, you know, we have nothing and we're going to build it up into this big city and this big town, and that playing a game like that's really fun. Another thing I like about the Old West are there's a lot of really cool character archetypes. You got things like lawman and the gunslinger and the gambler, and there are a lot of different games that translate that well and let you play those characters or interact with those characters in a lot of cool ways. I think of games like Deadlands and Bang the Dice Game, High Noon Saloon, and Dice Town are all really good examples of games that capture that Old West feel, either, you know, living out on the edge, surviving, gun battles, gambling, things like that. So it's just a really cool theme to play and just a very cool little world to visit and explore. So number 10, Old West. My number 9 favorite board game theme is Secrecy. And when I'm talking about Secrecy, I mean hidden trader games like Battlestar Galactica or Dead of Winter, or hidden movement games like Letters from Whitechapel or Spectre Ops. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, that's not the theme of those games, that's the mechanic. And I agree with you that yes, there are mechanics in the game that enforce the secrecy, but at the same time, the secrecy comes out as part of the theme. If you watch Battlestar Galactica, you know, even though that show takes place on a spaceship, a lot of the themes are paranoia and mistrust and fear, things like that. So the game really captures that portion of the story as well. And it comes out within play. You know, you're having to worry about who the traitor is, who's trying to hurt you, watching your back. That creates a really exciting, tense feeling within the game that I feel becomes part of the theme. You know, on the flip side, if you're the person who has to keep the secret, you know, trying to maintain that secret and, you know, drive suspicion away from you and, you know, maintain some level of normalcy, that's a lot of fun too, and that's very thematic. So to me, yes, secrecy is a theme for board games. Not only that, it's my number 9 favorite. My number 8 favorite game theme is fantasy, high fantasy to be specific. And I think that this is another genre that I'm not that into outside of gaming. I mean, I'll watch and read some of the better made stuff like Lord of the Rings, but for the most part it's not something I really pursue. But it is a fun world to escape to. I mean, you just look at the popularity of fantasy video games, tabletop role-playing games, even how popular LARPing is. And I know people give LARPers a really hard time, but man alive does that look like it's a lot of fun. And so, I mean, just fantasy is everywhere. And I think it's probably the most popular theme for board games. If you counted them all up, you probably find there's more fantasy games than anything else. It's just so prevalent in all types of gaming and all forms of entertainment. I think it's because it's just such a fun world to escape to. I mean, you have mythical creatures and magic, and you're able to do so many different things. You have really cool races and classes that you can play as or interact with, and just a lot of fun going on. It's traditionally a very strong dichotomy between good and evil. I know, you know, recently the trend has been away from that, but traditionally it's been good versus evil. So just a lot to cling on to there, a lot to enjoy. So many board games, like I said. Some of my favorites are Descent, Catacombs, Defenders of the Realm, and the Lord of the Rings games. Some of those are hit or miss, but a lot of them are fun too. So high fantasy, plenty to do there, really fun theme. My number 7 favorite theme is history or historical games. And I know that's very broad. If I had to break it down, I'd probably say American history, but really I enjoy any game in a historical setting in a period that I find interesting. And I know I already mentioned the Old West as a theme. When I talk about history, I'm not really talking about historical periods. I'm talking more about actual historical events. And I like history. It's something I like to study and read about. I'm by no means an expert on any of it, but I like games that either take me into a period or event that I am familiar with and plays it out well, or a game that teaches me something new about an event that I like. And that's what the best historical games do, is they teach you about the event as you play it. Specifically, I think about games like 1960, Making of a President. That game really brilliantly takes the Kennedy-Nixon campaign and breaks it down into a game. It takes actual events that happen in history in the campaign and translates them mechanically into events in the game and affects the game board and how the game plays. I love when games do that. Another game is Founding Fathers, a game about the founding of the U.S. Constitution. Every delegate that was at the Constitutional Convention is a character and a card in the game. And they play a certain way, and there's information about what they actually did in the Constitutional Convention that explains why their card plays the way it does. So I really enjoy games like that. A lot of war games would fall under this category. A lot of war games do a good job of doing that. I like the smaller, more compact games like Memoir 44, which also does a really good job of taking real battles, real engagements, and translating into a game and taking the events of the battle and turning them into mechanics in the game and really giving you an understanding of why things happened the way they did. I know probably the most historically accurate games are the old big war games, the ones that just take days upon days to play. A little too much time commitment for me on those. I don't play those. I am happier though with the smaller games, the quicker war games, and the other historical games. So that's my number 7 favorite theme, history. My number 6 favorite theme are the Cthulhu mythos, or the works of H.P. Lovecraft. This is a theme that's been done a lot in board games. Some people may think it's been overdone, and maybe to an extent it has. Some of the games aren't so great. There's a lot out there. There's been a lot of parodies made of it, but a lot of them are good, and I'm focusing specifically on Fantasy Flight's Arkham Horror series of games because those are really well done and really capture the world very well. I actually started reading Lovecraft because of the Arkham Horror games, and I just found some really interesting, really fun, bone-chilling stories there that were really fun to read. And I love the fact that these games capture that world so well. What they do the best is that if you haven't read Lovecraft and his stories, when you're fighting these insurmountable monsters, these like almost godlike creatures, you're not so much in danger of dying. It's more about losing your mind, going mad, going insane. And these games capture that very well, the fact that insanity is just as much as risk of death, if not more so. You're probably in more danger of going mad than you are dying. So those games capture that very well, and I just love how tight this series of games is. It started out with Arkham Horror, takes place in Arkham, the town of Arkham, and you're exploring that, fighting these monsters off. That was a very big, heavy game, lots of rules, lots of components. They took that and they turned it into Elder Sign, which is a dice game, much simpler. Takes the whole Arkham town and goes into one building in a museum there and focuses on that. Then you had Mansions of Madness. If you want to play a Descent type dungeon crawl through a haunted house, Mansions of Madness takes place in that same universe. And now they have Eldritch Horror, which is kind of the same as Arkham, but on a worldwide scale. So in each of these games, you're doing the same thing. You're fighting off Cthulhu and his minions, keeping them from crossing over into the world and taking over. But you're doing it in many different ways. And they're all very fun games. I love the way they all connect. If you open one game up and you've played another, but you haven't played this one, you'll have some understanding and some concept of how the game works. You'll recognize the characters, a lot of same characters. You'll see you have health and you have sanity, just like you do in all the other games. So there's a lot of fun crossover, a lot of fun games to play. So I just think they're great stories by H.P. Lovecraft, and they've been turned into great games. That's the Cthulhu mythos, number 6. My number 5 favorite game theme also comes to us from the horror genre, and I know a lot of you are going to cringe when you hear this, but my 5th favorite theme is zombies. Now, zombies are everywhere, including in board games. People think that the market's been flooded. There's too many of them. They need to stop. But I don't know why we're picking on zombie games. I mean, are there too many fantasy games? What about train games? We have to have more than enough train games. How are we ever going to play all the train games we have? So, for some reason, people are all up in arms about zombies. But hey, I like zombies. I've always enjoyed the stories. There's just something about that big horde coming. They're slow and they're dumb, but they're just going to keep coming and coming and coming and never stop. And how are you going to handle that? Something about that has always grabbed me. I've loved the books and the novels and the TV shows. I just like zombies. I think one of the great things about it is that there's so much you can do with zombies. You can do classic zombie horror like Night of the Living Dead. You can do zombie action movies like Land of the Dead. You can do zombie comedies like Shaun of the Dead. You can do character-driven zombie drama like Walking Dead. So, I mean, all of that has been done within board gaming. So even though there are a ton of board games out there with zombie theme, there are a lot of differences between them. There's a lot of different things you can do with that theme. So it's not just zombie after zombie after zombie. I mean, there's a lot of different, like I said, subgenres of zombie games. So, hey, I'll keep playing them. They keep coming out, keep making good zombie games. I don't think I'll ever have enough. I just like zombies. My number 4 favorite theme is one that I'm into in pretty much all aspects. I really enjoy. And to me, it's similar to fantasy in the fact that it's just a really cool world to visit and to explore, and that is science fiction. In science fiction games, you can be doing any variety of things. You can be, you can be soldiers, you can be explorers, you can be scientists discovering new technology, and the technology of these games really give you the ability to do so many different things. And I think the tech in sci-fi is the equivalent of magic in fantasy, where it just lets you do so much that you can't do in the real world. I mean, you have all kinds of alien races you can play as or interact with or fight against. There's so many different concepts, so many different ways you go with science fiction that it just makes a great game category. Again, after fantasy, I think sci-fi might be the second most popular theme of games. Just a ton of them out there, and again, just so much fun you can have with that. So much to do, so much to explore. And some of my favorites in this genre are Alien Frontier, Cosmic Encounter, Space Cadets, Conquest of Planet Earth, and then of course you have all the licensed material. You got Firefly, you got Star Trek, you got Battlestar Galactica. So just a plethora of great science fiction games, and that's why it is my number 4 favorite theme. My number 3 favorite board game theme is Creatures and Monsters. I wasn't sure exactly what to call this theme, but I use that term to describe games where you take one monster or one group of monsters and you pit them up against another group of monsters and you just have them duke it out and you see who's left standing. I've always had fun with movies or TV shows where you just had any kind of monster, whether it's classic monsters like King Kong versus Godzilla, or you just take something, this creature could breathe fire. This one has skin made out of rocks and a poison-tipped tail. Let's let them go at it, see who survives. I just always thought that was fun. It's just kind of stupid, silly fun, but it's enjoyable to me. And I like how that plays in games. The games that do this usually have really solid artwork, really interesting takes on the characters, and I always find that there seems to be really good mechanics to reflect the actual combat and the fight in the game. So I really like this. There aren't a ton of games that do it, but the games that do it well are really fun, and they're some of my favorites. The games I'm thinking of are King of Tokyo, of course, Monsters Menace America, Small World has battles between different creatures and monsters, Dungeon Twister, and even Smash Up in a way I think can fall into this category because you create new creatures and new monsters and have them do battle against each other. So again, it's a smaller category and a lot of different things might be able to fit into it, but I just love that creatures and monsters battle it out. That's my number 3. My number 2 favorite theme, and this may fall under a theme I already said. Some of you may say it doesn't because there's a big debate about that. But I separated this out of another bigger category because I really felt it deserved its own spot. My number 2 favorite theme is Star Wars. And again, that may or may not fall under science fiction, but I decided to separate it because I'm such a bigger fan of Star Wars than I am of any other type of science fiction. It's Star Wars up here, and then other science fiction falls somewhere below it. And also because there's so many games, especially recently, that I really feel it deserves its own spot. I've been a fan of Star Wars since I was a kid, ever since I can remember. I've always loved it, and any opportunity I've ever had to visit that world I've taken. From back when I was a kid and I played with little Kenner toys, till I got older I played the video games, I played tabletop role-playing games, and I play any board game of Star Wars I can get my hands on just because I love that world so much and I connect with it so much. I love it because in science fiction games, you may be a soldier, or you may be a scientist, or you may be an explorer. In Star Wars, most of the games you can be a lot of different things. Maybe you're a Jedi, which is really just, a space wizard with a laser sword. You may be a scoundrel, or you may be a fighter, a soldier, a pilot. Lots of different things you can do within the Star Wars world. So no matter what you want to do, what kind of game you want to play, what kind of character you want to play, there's probably a place for that in Star Wars somewhere. So I just think it's a great theme. Obviously, it's the only, I think, licensed IP on my list, and I think it deserves to be there. Especially now, Fantasy Flight has that license, and they are just running with it. They're putting out a lot of games. A lot of them are really good, and from what I understand, they're going to be putting out games for the new movies. So this is just going to be continued on and on. We're going to get a whole long list of really great Star Wars games. Some of my favorites were Queen's Gambit, which has been out of print for a long time. I know a lot of people want to get their hands on it. Ever get a chance to play that, it's a great game, and maybe the one redeeming factor that ever came out of Episode 1. Then you have, of course, Imperial Assault, you have X-Wing, you have the Living card game, and I'm usually not a big fan of LCGs, but I really enjoyed the Star Wars one. I really think it carried the theme well and told a good story. So Star Wars is obviously great movies, great everything, great board games. My number 2 favorite theme. And finally, my number 1 favorite board game theme is probably my favorite genre across all spectrums of entertainment and pop culture, and that is superheroes. I've loved comic books and superheroes since I was a little kid. It's something I've always really connected with and identified with, and I love playing board games about it. It's funny because up until maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, there really weren't a whole lot of superhero games out there. Not a whole lot of choices if you want to play them. Up until recently, you really started seeing the market get flooded with board games about superheroes. And I think that's a good thing. It's something that was sorely needed. And I think there's been a lot of good additions to that superhero theme. I said before that I feel like fantasy is the highest and purest form of escapism. And I feel like superheroes are the modern day version of that. If you look at the origins of Superman, he's the little twerp in the glasses that nobody pays attention to, and he takes off his glasses and suit, and unbeknownst to everybody, he's the most powerful guy in the world. So you don't get more escapist than that. And it's just so much fun to go into that world, to explore all the different things you could do. I mean, you have it's fanciful in the fact that you have all these powers. They're not based in magic, but they could be. You could be anything. You can be the big, powerful Superman or Hulk guy. You could be the lurking vigilante. You could be the guy in the power suit. And the best games give you that experience of each one of those archetypes, one of those heroes. It lets you feel like what it is to be that character. So, superheroes, I think it's a great theme, great everything. Some of my favorites: Sentinels of the Multiverse, Arkham City Escape for Batman, DC Deck Builder, Marvel Legendary, all great games, great theme. Number 1 on my heart, number 1 for board games, superheroes. Hey everybody, thanks so much for watching number 10 of my top 10s of board gaming. Now I want to hear from you. Which ones of these did I get right? Which ones did I get wrong? What are your favorite themes? Put it in the comment section, let me know. It's not too late to give me your idea for a top 10 list you want to see me do. Give me your idea in the comment section or email me at rollandmovereviews@gmail.com. And if your idea is better than the ones I already have, I'll definitely use it. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page. Got lots of cool lists and more reviews coming up, and you don't want to miss any of them. While you're at it, visit alteregogames.net, our sponsor website. They're going to get you great deals on all the games you're looking for, especially with the holidays coming up. If you want to watch some of our other videos, find them on YouTube, Facebook, Board Game Geek, or the Alter Ego Game site. Otherwise, that's it for this time, guys, and I will see you with number 9 coming soon.
The top